My grandfather used to tell this story with a shadow in his gaze, one that tequila can never erase. He said that in the village, black cats are not pets, but vessels. Empty containers that something else can occupy. Welcome to your horror podcast. Here, you will hear real stories that make your blood run cold and expand your English vocabulary. Get comfortable and enjoy the story. My Aunt Mariella had Chimuelo, a cat with thinning fur and eyes of a sickly yellow. The animal didn't meow. It emitted a death rattle, a dry sound that vibrated in the chest of anyone who heard it. For months, Chimuelo developed a ritual. At 3 a.m, he would sit on the window frame overlooking the Monte de los Torcidos. That place was cursed land. Trees with branches like fractured fingers where the wind didn't blow but sobbed. The cat stayed there, rigid as a gargoyle, his pupils so dilated that his eyes were 2 wells of tar. "Hey, the cat wants to go out," Mariella whispered one early morning, shaking my shoulder. Her voice sounded flat, hypnotized. "Then just let him out. Don't F*CK around," I replied. My body felt heavy, as if the air in the room had turned to lead. Mariella didn't move. She stood by the bed, staring into the darkness of the hallway. "It's just, he won't stop looking at the mount," as if something were passing him instructions. As if they were calling roll, she said. I felt a chill run down my spine, but Big Brother pride made me act like an idiot. Well, if he wants to go, let him. That was the error that cursed my family. Mariella went downstairs. I heard the creak of the front door. Chimuelo didn't run out. He walked with a macabre elegance, stopping every 3 steps to turn his head 180 degrees. It was a silent invitation, a follow me that needed no words. Mariella, with bare feet and a lost gaze, crossed the threshold. She crossed the yard where the dogs, usually fierce, were curled in a ball, whimpering in pure terror. She entered the Monte de los Torcidos, following the black trail of that creature. I woke up completely 20 minutes later because of the silence. An absolute silence, as if the world had run out of oxygen. I went out with a flashlight whose light seemed to be devoured by the blackness of the mount. "Mariella, stop with the *T. I shouted. My voice died a few meters away, stifled by the vegetation. Suddenly, I heard it, the sound of Chimuelo. But it was no longer a snore, it was a laugh. A human laugh, small and raspy, coming from the top of a tree. I shone the light and saw the glint of yellow eyes. I lowered the light and found the trail. The prints of my sister's small feet were deeply imprinted in the mud. I walked a few more meters, heading into the heart of the mount, where the smell of rancid meat began to float. And then logic broke. The prints of Chimuelo's 4 paws stopped dead in the middle of a clearing. The cat had simply vanished. But Mariella's prints continued. The stride had become longer, as if something were pulling her. Toward the densest darkness, where the trees closed in like a cage, we searched for her for 3 days. The dogs refused to enter the clearing. They would urinate on themselves and howl looking upward, toward the treetops. On the 4th day, Chimuelo returned. He appeared sitting in the same window, impeccable, without a single scratch. My grandfather gave him to a muleteer who was heading far away, but before they took him, he saw something. In the reflection of the cat's yellow eyes, you couldn't see the living room. You saw Mariella screaming in a place where it is always night. My grandfather died crying because of the suspicion that every time the cat meowed, it was Mariella's voice, trying to come out of that broken throat. Be careful what doors you leave open. Sleep well, if you can. The following story recounts one of the greatest fears we have had since childhood. When I was a child, sharing a room with my sister wasn't a game. It was a sentence to live under the gaze of her ladies. She had a rustic wooden cabinet, a high shelf that dominated the room, filled with collectible dolls. They were made of cold porcelain with yellowish lace dresses, designed to sit eternally with rigid hands on their laps. Their glass eyes, fixed and lidless, seemed to follow my every move, shining with a strange light when the moon entered the window. For months, the same dream consumed me, a sleep paralysis that felt more real than life itself. I dreamed the room filled with an absolute silence, a vacuum of sound that woke me in the early morning. Then the horror began. I heard the first snap, crack, a porcelain joint turning. Then the soft, rhythmic rustle of silk dresses against the wood. One by one, the dolls slid off the edge of the shelf. They didn't fall. They descended with a macabre grace. They walked toward my bed with short, rigid steps, a dry metallic sound, tap, 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 on the linoleum floor. In the dream, I tried to scream, but my throat was sealed. I tried to move, but my body was a lead statue. I felt the weight of the first doll climbing onto my feet, then my knees. Their cold, hard little hands closed around my neck, while their painted faces smiled inches from mine. With that smell of old talcum powder suffocating me, I always woke up with a muffled scream, cold sweating. My first glance was always toward the cabinet, and there they were, all sitting impeccable in their original positions. It was just a nightmare, I repeated to myself, trying to normalize the terror weighing on my chest. But one night, the ritual changed. I felt the dream beginning again. The same silence, the same cold. I saw the first doll, one in an electric blue dress, turn her head toward me. I saw her legs swing on the shelf. Panic flooded me, but this time I managed to sit up suddenly. My breathing was ragged. I was awake, totally awake. It's over, you're awake now, I thought, relieved, as I wiped the sweat from my forehead. I turned my head toward my sister's cabinet to confirm that the dolls were still in their place. The shelf was empty. The air escaped my lungs. Slowly, I lowered my gaze toward the center aisle separating my bed from my sister's. There they were, standing in a perfect single file, halfway between the cabinet and my bed, their porcelain faces pointing directly upward. The doll in the electric blue dress was at the head, with a hand raised. I froze. In the twilight, I swore I saw the glass pupil of the front doll contract slightly, adapting to the light, waiting for me to go back to sleep. And remember, these stories are based on real events. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoy horror stories, don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video. Good night, and sweet nightmares.